in.
Yes, good morning, Cap. I'm Firefighter Conley. Would it be okay if Firefighter Cesari rides for me? I'd like to leave early.
Does Cesari know you have control?
Yes, I spoke to him. He knows my position. Everything is covered.
Fine, take off then.
Okay, Cap. Thank you very much. Have a safe tour.
Negative. All we have is in a lot,
Good morning, fellas. I'm Captain O'Donnell. I'll be doing the captain's vacation here. Pete Strahl.
Yeah.
You're the MPO. Kevin Sheehan.
Yeah.
You have the nozzle. Eddie Ireland.
Yeah.
You have the backup. Joe Cestari. You have control. We have hydrants at 11 o'clock today.
Cap, I don't know if you noticed, but on the board out in the house watch, it's written that we have a 6-inch main out of service on Lincoln between McKinley and Liberty. And I've notified the surrounding companies, and the engine officers know to take the hydrant on the avenue.
Thanks, Kev. Okay, fellas, let's check the rig and check the mast.
It's first due, 185 Berriman Street, phone alarm, box 1824, fire, 3rd floor, front. Turn out.
Brooklyn, calling engine 236K.
Engine 236.
236, be advised, we got a couple of calls on this. Sounds like a job. You got 3, 2, the rescue and a squad coming in. 236?
236, 10-4. Engine 236 to Brooklyn, Kate.
Go ahead, 236.
1084, box 1824, 1075. We have a fire on the 3rd floor of an occupied multiple dwelling.
10-4. 1075, box 1824, 1075, box 1824. Fire on the 3rd floor of an occupied multiple dwelling.
The engine company chauffeur proceeds to the hydrant and positions the apparatus for hydrant connection. Depending on the security devices on that hydrant, the engine company chauffeur should select the proper hydrant wrench. If problems are encountered at the hydrant, the chauffeur should be prepared to adapt and overcome them as shown here. An important part of connecting to a hydrant is to test it. Do not connect a pumper to a hydrant that has not been opened and flushed. This is especially true if the hydrant is found with one or both caps missing, because debris such as bottles, rubber balls, and plastic bags are often deposited there and will obstruct the supply of water into the pumps. If both hydrant caps are missing, the engine company chauffeur must place a 2.5-inch cap or the hydrant plug on the 2.5-inch outlet if the 4.5-inch outlet is used. After testing the hydrant and replacing any required caps, the chauffeur must select and apply the appropriate hydrant connection. This chauffeur is using the small hydrant connection, but the 35-foot yellow connection or a 50-foot length of 3.5-inch hose can also be used. We connect to the hydrant first and then to the apparatus. Don't be concerned with kinks in this small hydrant connection. Once the hydrant is opened, the pressure quickly straightens the kinks. Once all the connections are complete to the hydrant, it should be turned on fully and the hydrant wrench secured. After the chauffeur completes the hydrant connection and opens the hydrant, the hose line coming off the rear hose bed must be broken and attached to a discharge outlet to complete the stretch. A good engine company chauffeur must be able to perform these duties alone. In a 5-firefighter engine, the control firefighter may initially assist the engine company chauffeur, but must return to the stretch as soon as possible, especially in larger buildings. The stretching of a hose line is one of the most basic yet vital operations performed by members of this department. In order to rapidly and correctly position a hose line, the following tactics should be employed. The first member to enter the building should chock the door or doors opened in anticipation of other members stretching a hose line through that entrance. This can be a member of a ladder company or the engine officer. Engine company firefighters proceeding toward the back step area of the apparatus should observe the building for signs of the fire's location or of its severity. This observation is especially important for the control firefighter, who can begin estimating the number of lengths of hose required to reach the fire area even before a line is called for. Upon orders from the engine company officer, the members will remove the correct number of lengths required to reach the fire area. The nozzle backup and door firefighter should each remove approximately 1 length of hose. This can be determined by pulling a specific number of folds, or the first several lengths can be packed in a horseshoe or loop consisting of 1 length each. The first stretch depicted here is using the folds. The horseshoe or loop method described previously is shown here. As can be seen, the first and second lengths can be pulled more rapidly and accurately than the traditional fold method. Once again, the control firefighter removes the balance of the hose required for the complete stretch and signals the engine company chauffeur to proceed to the hydrant. In a 4-firefighter company, the control firefighter would have to perform the same duties shown here and additionally would then carry the third length into the building. While the engine chauffeur was performing his duties, the other engine company firefighters were proceeding up the interior stairs with the hose line. Ascending at a quick but steady pace, the members space themselves and carry their lengths up toward the fire area. The last member in the stretch drops their folds and begins to feed the excess line up toward the 2 remaining members. The control firefighter, who has followed the line up from the street and removed any slack, also assists in feeding the hose. The benefit of stretching a hose line using an engine staffed with 5 firefighters is illustrated here. A firefighter can be positioned to cover all the critical points where hose may snag or kink. An engine company staffed with 4 firefighters, 1 member would be performing the work shown here done by 2. As the nozzle and backup reach the floor below the fire, the backup must select the appropriate place to drop their folds. In this situation, the half landing below the fire floor is selected, and the backup proceeds to feed his length up toward the nozzle firefighter, who is continuing up to the fire floor with the nozzle and a length of hose. The engine company officer who entered the building prior to the hose line reaches the fire floor first. From this position, the officer can observe the fire area and may even have stopped on the floor below to take a look at the layout of the area directly below the fire area. Staying low and feeling for heat behind the door, the officer prepares for the arrival of the hose line and takes control of the door to the fire area. As the nozzle and backup arrive on the fire floor landing, they begin to flake out the length of hose carried by the nozzle firefighter. This building, with its small landing, forced the backup firefighter to lay the uncharged line up the stairs to avoid kinks and make for an easier advance by pulling the charged line down the steps into the fire apartment. The backup firefighter must exercise extreme caution while operating on this stairway above the fire. If the door to the fire area is open or burns through, heavy smoke, high heat, and fire may rapidly rise up the stairway, exposing this member. Once the line is in position, the officer calls for water and the nozzle team should don their SCBA masks. At this point, all members should be sure to be completely outfitted with all protective equipment, including bunker gear, gloves, helmet with ear flaps, SCBA, and pass alarms on. After bleeding the line of any trapped air, the apartment door is slowly opened and the fire attack can begin. The nozzle team must start every advance on the same side of the doorway in a kneeling or crouching position. And remember, never enter the fire area without water. Some situations may require that a hose line be stretched via a rope up the outside of a building. The hose line is brought to a location below the window to which it will be hoisted, in this case, out of the rear of the building. The officer and the nozzle member ascends to the floor below the fire and drops the rope to the firefighters in the courtyard. The rope is secured to the hose several feet from the nozzle and is hoisted up to the floor below the fire. Up on the floor below the fire, the nozzle firefighter pulls in enough hose to reach the seat of the fire. The hose is secured with a hose strap, flaked out, and advanced into the fire area using standard operating procedures. The well hole stretch uses the opening that exists in some stairways for a rapid stretch using less hose line. The nozzle member carries the first link along with the nozzle up the stairwell, holding the hose in the well. The remaining members drop their folds of hose at the base of the stairs directly under the well hole and take positions on each of the floors above. As the nozzle member ascends, the remaining members hoist and lift the hose up until the fire floor is reached. After pulling sufficient hose onto the fire floor, the other members secure the hose line to the banisters below using a hose strap. Upon arrival at an operation in standpipe building, several tactics must be carried out simultaneously. In both 4 and 5 firefighter engine companies, 3 members must remove a 2.5-inch rolled-up length of hose each and carry it into the building lobby. After being notified by the latter company of the fire's location, the officer and members ascend to the floor below the fire for connection to the standpipe outlet. In an engine staffed with 5 firefighters, a control firefighter may assist the engine company chauffeur with the 3.5-inch supply line into the standpipe Siamese. An engine staffed with 4 members, the engine company chauffeur will usually perform these functions alone or with the assistance of the second due engine. After connecting the supply line to the Siamese and the pumper discharge, the control firefighter can remove a 4th rolled-up length if needed and report to the floor where the standpipe line is connected. The firefighter that connects the 3.5-inch supply line to the standpipe Siamese must carry the appropriate tools to complete the job. Some Siamese connections have standard caps with lugs which can be opened with a spanner, while others, such as the inlet on the right side of the Siamese, are equipped with breakaway caps which must be struck with a tool and broken to be removed. For upper floor fires where higher pressures may be required, the supply line can be connected to the rear discharge of the newer Seagrave pumpers or to a discharge outlet on the side opposite the pump panel. The engine company chauffeur must personally assure that the supply line is connected to the correct Siamese and supply water to it as soon as possible. If a standpipe Siamese is obstructed or otherwise inoperable, an alternate method of supply must be employed. This firefighter is stretching the 3.5-inch supply line into the building in order to connect it to the first floor outlet of the standpipe system. After checking to see that the outlet is clear of debris, the firefighter attaches the required fittings. This situation is a 3-inch male hose butt which must be connected to the 2.5-inch male thread from the standpipe outlet. We connect a 2.5-inch double female to the outlet and a 3-inch to 2.5-inch reducer to the hose butt, which is then threaded onto the standpipe outlet. As can be seen, the valve wheel for this outlet is missing, so the firefighter must use a vice grip or other suitable hand tool to open the valve. Upon arrival at the floor where the hose will be connected to the standpipe outlet, the officer makes 2 notifications. First, to the engine company chauffeur for pressure computations, and second, to the control firefighter to notify him of the floor that he must connect to. The firefighter connecting the hose line to the standpipe outlet on the floor below the fire must be able to adjust to the conditions encountered. Some outlets may require a thread adapter before we can connect our hose line, while others may need to be cleaned with a wire brush to remove paint or other accumulations from the threads. You must also be aware of any pressure regulating devices within the system that will restrict the flow of water. The use of a pressure gauge at the standpipe outlet can be very helpful in assisting the firefighter to provide adequate pressure to the nozzle for an effective firefighting stream. An important point to remember is that the correct pressure must be displayed on the gauge when water is flowing. The gauge can be marked so that the member operating the valve wheel can open the valve sufficiently to provide enough pressure to the nozzle. After completing the outlet connections, the hose should be flaked out on the stairs leading up to the fire floor and into the public hall on the floor below if necessary. Department Order Number 9, January 27, 1999 states, all hose stretches from standpipes shall be 2.5-inch hose with 1 1/8-inch mainstream tip and shall be connected to the floors below the fire floor. Firefighters carrying the rolled-up lengths of 2.5-inch hose will be opening up their hose packs and making the final connections on the fire floor. As always, full firefighting gear and SCBA must be donned prior to entering the fire area. A word of caution: if the fire department door is left open, the smoke and heat conditions in the public hall can become extreme. SCBA face pieces and gloves must be donned prior to entering the hallway if these conditions are present or suspected. The 2.5-inch line is advanced down the hallway to the fire department entrance and is flaked out prior to calling for water. Fire attack is conducted using department standard operating procedures. The attack of the fire is a coordinated effort and requires teamwork on the part of all first alarm units. Engine and trucks must coordinate the stretching and operating of hose lines, along with forcible entry, search, and ventilation procedures. Getting the first line into operation to make the initial attack on the fire is critical to the success of the entire operation. The engine officer must locate the door to the fire apartment while the nozzle man stretches the first length to a safe area in proximity of the fire. There should be some degree of visibility for the flaking out of the hose and then charging and bleeding the line. The nozzle team should never enter the fire area without water. The backup man is the second man on the line. While waiting for water, he flakes out the hose based on the fire conditions and the fire floor layout and gets ready for the attack on the fire. The control man is the last man on the stretch. His main job is to provide enough hose to get to the seat of the fire while minimizing the total hose used in the stretch. He breaks the line, hooks up to a discharge, and lets the engine company chauffeur know how many lengths were stretched. The backup man then goes to his position behind the nozzle man to provide both physical and moral support. It is his job to absorb as much nozzle reaction as possible. He does this by remaining as close to the nozzle man as possible, exerting a forward thrust on the line to counter its kickback, and by leaning into the nozzle man to provide physical support. The control man flakes out the line to avoid kinks and feeds slack until members have enough hose. The officer should check the door to see if it is hot. Next, he should ask the nozzle man if he is ready and then call for water so that the attack can begin. No one should be exposed in the hallway above as the attack is initiated. The engine company chauffeur charges the line when ordered and must ensure the officer is aware of whether he is operating with hydrant or booster water.
263, chauffeur, 263, I'm not ready at the hydrant, I'm giving you booster water.
The control man should eliminate kinks both outside and inside the building. He should see that all necessary doors are chocked and make his way up towards the fire floor, where he will assist in feeding hose line to the attack team. The nozzle man should crack the line open slightly while waiting for water. A hissing sound will indicate that water is coming. The line should then be bled. The nozzle man can frequently get the layout of the fire area and determine what stage the fire is in by looking in at floor level. Before the door to the fire area is opened, the nozzle team should all position themselves on the same side of the door entrance and remain low. If the door is hot or fire is showing, hit the ceiling with the stream to cool the area above and drive the fire gases back into the fire area. The line should be operated forward and upward in a side-to-side or clockwise rotating action. The floor should then be swept before the line is advanced so as to cool any fallen debris or remaining burning material. Sweeping the floor also helps us to determine if there are any holes in the floor. The backup man must keep his portion of the line low to assist the nozzle man with maintaining the upward angle of the stream. When the nozzle man makes a turn, the backup man must move in the opposite direction and reposition himself directly behind the nozzle man. The doorman is the next man on the line. After flaking out the hose, he reports to the officer at the door and stations himself at the entrance. He feeds more line into the fire area a few feet at a time as it is called for, keeping a little rise or bow in the line. The control man must assist in feeding hose around and upstairs to prevent the hose from snagging. He must conserve his air and energy as he may be called upon to relieve members from the nozzle team. The doorman maintains his position at the door entrance in the hallway so that he can keep the entranceway from overcrowding, watch for changing conditions, and be aware of fire teams going above the fire. He should warn members going above the fire if they are still on the stairs or by handy-talkie when changing conditions might endanger them. If a room to either side has to be made before the main body of fire is reached, cool the overhead areas well ahead of the line before hitting these rooms. It is only necessary to operate from the doorway of these rooms, knocking the fire down and moving on to the main body of fire. If conditions permit, advance toward the fire area without using water, getting as close to the fire as possible. Once the fire is knocked down, the officer should order the stream shut and let it blow. This will allow heat, smoke, and steam to rise and vent. It will also allow any remaining fire to light up so the nozzle man can complete extinguishment.
cannot overemphasize the importance and usefulness of portable ladders. By the nature of our firefighting procedures, a unit that responds primarily to private dwellings will utilize portable ladders more frequently than companies in a high-rise area. This will not eliminate the use of portable ladders by a member at any time, regardless of whether they are working in their own firehouse or another as a result of a detail or roster staffing. Let's review some of the parts of our portable ladders and the proper raising procedures. This partially extended 24-foot ladder will give us an opportunity to view and discuss some of the components of our various portable ladders. The beams are what we might call the sides of the ladder. The lower part of the beam that touches the ground is known as the shoe. The beams are made of two rails, an outer rail and an inner rail. The inner rail is the one near the building. Gusset plates connect the two rails and provide support for the rungs. The part of the ladder that rests on the ground is called the butt, and the part resting on the building is referred to as the tip. The section of the ladder that remains stationary is known as the bed section, while the section of the ladder that extends is called the fly section. The halyard is used to extend and retract the fly section, and the device that secures the fly in place is the ladder lock. The following procedures apply to the transportation of all fire department ladders to and from points of operation, with some minor variations for the 35-foot ladder. For carrying purposes, two members will position themselves at each end of the ladder, with the fly out, grasping the upper beam. The rear man gives the command, "Ready, lift."
Ready, lift.
He gives the command because he can see when the other member is ready. The ladder is raised to their shoulder in unison, with the underside of the upper beam resting on their shoulders. The front man places his arm through the second and third rungs from the tip, grasping the first rung. The free arm is used to avoid obstructions. The rear man places his arm through the last two rungs and grasps the third rung from the butt. Although the rear man gave the command for lifting the ladder, the front man gives the command, "Ready, transport," and both members move toward the objective.
Ready, transport.
Upon reaching their destination, the front man gives the command, "Ready, halt."
Ready, halt.
They lower the ladder to the ground. Upon arrival at the point of operation, the ladder should be placed on its beam with the fly section facing out and the butt below the objective. Let's watch as the ladder is raised into position.
Prepare to raise. Raise. Prepare to lower it into the building. Lower it into the building.
To raise, extend, and place the ladder into the building, the ladder must be in position beneath its objective, and the butt man will take a position with his back to the building. The foot near the tip is placed on the lower shoe. The hand near the tip grabs the underside of the upper beam at approximately the third rung with the palm up. The other hand will grab the upper beam shoe, palm down, and the other leg will be extended for leverage. As the butt man was getting into his position, the raising man was taking a position 1/3 the distance from the tip on the street side of the ladder facing the tip. With both men in position, the butt man gave the command, "Prepare to raise." The raising man does a partial knee bend, grabs the upper beam on the rail closer to the building. The butt man now gives the command, "Raise." The raising man lifts the ladder from the ground. He pivots in under the lower beam and is now facing the butt man. Using a hand-under-hand motion along the lower beam, he raises the ladder to a vertical position. He then takes a position on the street side of the ladder opposite the butt man. The butt man snubs the left beam with his left toe and unties the knot. He extends the fly by grasping the halyard at right angles to the direction of the pull. When the ladder has been extended to the desired height, he engages the ladder locks. While the butt man is performing his actions, the raising man's position is a boxer's stance with his left foot on the ground, dead center between the beams, and both of his hands grasping the beams on the inner rail at shoulder height. This steadies the ladder as it is being extended. The raising man determines the height of the extension. In order to place the ladder into the building, the butt man gives the command, "Place ladder against building," and grasps both beams on the inner rail shoulder high. At the same time, the raising man places his left foot on the center of the bottom rung and his hands grab a rung palms down. He looks up and guides the ladder into the building as the butt man steps back, keeping his arms straight while placing the ladder into the building. After placing the ladder into the building, the butt man will secure the halyard by tying a clove hitch and binder on the taut part of the rope on the third rung. Keep in mind the halyard may be left untied if the situation warrants. If time permits, or if the ladder is to be rolled or carried vertically, the halyard must be tied. No other knots are necessary. After the raising man placed the ladder into the building and the butt man secured the halyard, the raising man may have to adjust the angle of the ladder. When adjusting the ladder, a member will be positioned to either the left or right side of the ladder. He will grasp the second or third rung with his palm up and place his other hand on the underside of the beam closer to him at a comfortable height. He then lifts the butt a few inches off the ground and pulls the ladder out to adjust the angle. The desired angle of the ladder should be 65 to 75 degrees. If there has been a miscalculation of the extension needed, the ladder cannot be pulled out to compensate for the excess, but must be retracted to the proper height, and then minor angle adjustments can be made. A simple formula to get a 75-degree angle is to pull the butt out from the building 1/4 the distance of the working length of the ladder. Here we have a 20-foot straight up against the building. We calculate 1/4 of 20 is 5. That tells us to pull the ladder out 5 feet. Sometimes the tip will provide the support, as in the case of placing a ladder alongside a fire escape. And then there will be times when the beams provide the support, as in the case of placing a ladder on a parapet. Using the same formula, 1/4 of the working length, we calculate 1/4 of 16 is 4. This time we pull the butt of the ladder out 4 feet.
Secure the ladder.
The secure ladder command is given by the butt man when a ladder is in a vertical position between commands, or may be given by either member having or noticing a loss of control. When they are facing the rungs and upon the command secure ladder, each will grasp both beams at shoulder height on the rails closer to them. They simultaneously place the ball of the left foot on the bottom rung with the side of the foot up against the right beam. The right foot is used as a stabilizer and both exert downward pressure. When a vertical ladder carry is necessary, lift the ladder back to a vertical position in the reverse order of laying it into the building. Members will then move to their right, facing the beams. Place their left hand on the beam head high and their right hand on the third rung palm up. The member facing the direction of travel says, "Ready, lift." Both lift the ladder a few inches. The member facing the direction of travel then gives ready carry command and looks alternately up at the tip and the destination as both carry the ladder. At the destination, the firefighter facing the direction of travel says, "Ready, halt." Both halt and place the ladder on the ground.
Ready, halt.
Lowering operation.
Ready? Lower. Prepare to step out. Step out.
Let's review. To lower the ladder, the members shall return the ladder to a vertical position. This will once again leave the buttman with her back to the building. Let's watch as the buttman secures the halyard prior to lowering the ladder to the ground. Care must be given not to use numerous knots to take up any slack for an excessively long halyard. These could possibly cause a serious delay in deploying the ladder in a rescue of a civilian or a member. 2 half hitches around the 3rd or 4th rung of both the bed and fly section will be sufficient. Any excess halyard should be trimmed and the end of the halyard fused or whipped to prevent fraying. With her back to the building, the buttman will place her foot closer to the direction of lowering, on the lower ladder shoe. The other leg is extended for leverage. She also grasps the beam opposite the raising man with the hand closer to the tip, palm up in a pulling position. The hand closer to the butt will be on the beam at a comfortable height towards the shoe. At the same time, the raising man should be facing the ladder beam on the lowering side of the ladder, grasping the beam about head high with both hands. As the buttman gives the command, ready lower, her foot closer to the direction of lowering is still on the lower ladder shoe. As the ladder is lowered, the hand closer to the butt will come in contact with the upper shoe and downward pressure should be applied while pulling up with the other hand that is on the underside of the beam. When the ready lower command is given, the raising man grabs the beam head high, pulls the ladder to him and lowers it in a hand-over-hand motion. As he approaches the 1/3 distance from the tip, the buttman gives the prepare to step out command. At the 1/3 distance, the buttman gives the step out command. The raising man steps out from under the beam on the street side of the ladder. He turns towards the ladder and grabs the upper beam on the inner rail. He continues to lower the ladder, bending his knees as the ladder nears the ground. 3 members may be used to transport the 135-pound, 35-foot ladder. The 3rd member is positioned at the center. The rear man gives the command, ready, lift.
Ready? Lift. Ready? Transport.
They use the hand carry method for short distances. The front man controls the carry with the ready transport and ready halt commands. When reaching the point of operation, the butt should be directly under the objective, with the ladder resting on a beam and the fly section facing out.
Prepare to raise. Raise.
Let's review. After placing the ladder on the ground under the objective, the buttman will be taking a position with his back to the building, and he will place his foot nearer the tip on the lower shoe. The hand closer to the tip will grasp the underside of the upper beam, palm up, and his other hand is on the upper shoe, palm down. The raising men will have now positioned themselves on the street side of the ladder, 1/3 the distance from the tip, with the taller man near the tip. The buttman will then give the command, prepare to raise, and both raising men will do partial knee bends, grasping the upper beam on the inner rail with their hand that is closer to the building. The raise command will result in the raising men both lifting the ladder off the ground. As they lift, they will pivot, turning in and under the ladder, and will now be facing the buttman. They raise the ladder to a vertical position using a hand-under-hand motion as they move along the lower beam towards the buttman. As the ladder nears a vertical position, the raising man nearer the butt steps out and proceeds to the far side of the ladder and turns and faces the beam. Upon reaching a vertical position, the raising man who started nearer the tip will stop and be facing the beam that was used for raising. The buttman assists in the raising by pushing down with the hand that is on the upper shoe and pulling up with the hand that is on the beam. His foot near the tip is on the lower shoe while extending his other leg for leverage. When the ladder reaches the vertical position, the butt man will end up facing the rungs. The ladder and members are now in position for the ladder to be extended. During the extending of the fly section, the butt man snubs the left beam with his left toe. He will untie the knot and then extend the fly section to the desired height by grasping the halyard at right angles to the direction of the pull. This will help prevent the halyard from slipping through his hands. The raising men will indicate when the fly has been extended to the proper height, and the butt man will engage the ladder locks to lock the fly in place. As the ladder is being extended, the raising men stand facing the beams and grasp the rails of the bed section, with the left hand about head high and the right hand waist high. Their feet should be about 2 feet apart. As they steady the ladder, both members should be looking up. Once the ladder has been extended and the fly locked, the ladder is ready to be placed into the building.
Prepare to place the ladder against the building. Place the ladder.
He then secures the halyard as with the 25-foot ladder. The raising men adjust the ladder angle if necessary. Vertical carry. The butt man grabs the rung just above the head, palm down, on the side of the ladder opposite the direction of travel. His other hand grabs the second rung from the bottom, palm up. Each of the raising men will face a beam and grasp it head high with his left hand and grasp the second rung from the bottom with his right hand, palm up. The butt man then gives the following commands. Ready, lift. In unison, the members lift the ladder slightly off the ground. Ready, carry. The butt man looks alternately from the tip to the direction of travel to avoid obstructions and to help maintain the ladder in a straight position. Ready, halt. Members halt and lower the ladder to the ground. If the secure ladder command is given while the ladder is vertically carried, the raising men should grab the beam in front of them at eye level with one hand on each rail. They exert a downward pressure, then pivot into their position facing the rungs, with their foot near the partner going up on the bottom rung against the beam in front of them. His left hand is at eye level and the right hand is 12 inches below the left on the rail directly in front of them. As the men face the rungs, the butt man will grasp each beam shoulder high and place one foot on the center of the bottom rung. All members exert downward pressure with hands and feet. These positions must be attained whenever there is a loss in control of the 35-foot ladder noticed by any of the members and the secure ladder command is given. Lowering operation.
Excellent. Yeah, lower. Lower. Step out. Step out.
The butt man gives the prepare to lower command and the raising men ready themselves. The taller raising man grabs the beam head high with both hands on the lowering side of the ladder. The shorter member stands next to him on the street side of the ladder. At the lower command, the butt man is in position with the foot in the direction of lowering on the lower shoe and his other leg extended for leverage. The taller member pulls the ladder in his direction and begins lowering in a hand-over-hand motion, while the shorter member steps in and assists in the lowering. When the raising men approach the 1/3 distance from the tip, the butt man gives the prepare to step out command, followed by step out, as they turn to the street side of the ladder. As they turn, they grasp the upper beam on the inner rail and lower the ladder to the ground. The 24-foot extension ladder, or a straight ladder, can be put into operation by one firefighter when the need arises. With both shoes flat on the ground against the building and the fly up if it's an extension ladder, the member is positioned at the tip facing the building, then squats and grabs the top rung of the ladder, lifts and steps underneath, raising with a hand-under-hand motion along the beam until it is in a vertical position against the building. The ladder range is adjusted if extending the ladder is necessary. Member would pull out the butt approximately 2 to 3 feet and snub the left beam with the left foot and the tip against the building. The knot will be untied, the fly extended to the proper height. and then the halyard secured before rolling to turn the fly away from the building. The ladder must be rolled to have the fly out, even if the ladder wasn't extended. After rolling the ladder, the angle may once again have to be adjusted as was described previously. A member should stand on the side of the ladder facing the beam in the direction of travel. The member will pivot the ladder on the far beam by lifting up on the nearer beam and rolling the ladder toward the objective. As the ladder rotates, place the foot closer to the direction of travel on the center of the bottom rung, while at the same time grasping both beams. This will help stabilize the ladder for angle adjustment or additional rolls. Let's review ladder placement for a few different positions. When we put a ladder to the roof, we must always have it at least 2 feet extended over the roof. Proper position for putting a ladder alongside a fire escape balcony is 1 to 3 feet above the railing. To alleviate crowding on a fire escape, the first ladder will be placed opposite the drop ladder at the lower balcony level, with the next one being placed on the same side of the drop ladder, 1 floor above the lower balcony. If a portable ladder is placed directly on a fire escape, it should rest slightly above the top rail. Place portable ladders at all sides of buildings regardless of their immediate need or not. Be prepared for the unexpected use of portable ladders by our firefighting personnel for entry or exit. Above all, don't use the aerial in close proximity to power lines when a portable ladder will suffice. Notice the firefighter on the portable ladder is operating safely while those on the aerial are electrocuted. Hands-on drills with the portable ladders are extremely important as they encourage their swift and safe deployment.
Forcible entry is an aspect of firefighting that every one of us needs to be familiar with. For the ladder companies, it's part of their job. But engine companies, too, are finding that more frequently they need to be familiar with the ins and outs of forcible entry. When detailed to a ladder company, they usually end up as part of the inside team. In many instances, an engine will find itself acting as a ladder company when none are available. With this in mind, let's take a look at some of the basics of forcible entry. And remember, whether it happens once in your career or 1,000 times, at some point you will be the man at the door, and all eyes will be upon you to get the locks off and the door open. Okay, you're at the fire building. Now you have to gain entry for the engine, make your search, and vent. What this tape will show you is how to use force to accomplish these goals in residential and commercial buildings. There are times when the through-the-lock method is preferred, but these will be covered in a later tape. What do you do first? Size up, because size up will tell you how to attack the door. Taking a moment to see what kind of a door you're dealing with will save you both time and effort. Don't be afraid to talk it up among the forcible entry team to come up with the best plan of action, especially on doors that are uncommon. The amount of force used will be determined by many factors. Consider if it's a fire or an emergency. For food on the stove or water leaks, naturally use the least damaging means of gaining entry. There are some questions you must immediately ask yourself the moment you confront a door. What type of door is it? How does the door open? What type of locking devices are securing this door? Let's take a look at a few doors. Wooden doors are commonly found throughout the city in private dwellings and occasionally in tenements. The calamine door is constructed of wood, covered with metal, and can be found in brownstones as well as old and new law tenements. Metal doors are found everywhere. They have hollow or filled door frames. Tempered glass doors are generally found in commercial occupancies. They can withstand considerable punishment. Their weak points are where the glass meets the frame in the corners. They shatter into little fragments when broken, sometimes with explosive force, so keep those eye shields down. Glass and aluminum doors are sometimes made with plate glass. Plate glass will not crystallize when broken, as tempered glass does. Shards of broken glass falling from these doors could cause a serious injury. So always exercise extra caution when encountering this type of door. After removing the glass, make sure you take out the push or crossbar. Many members have been hung up on the crossbar when entering or exiting the building. Next, look at how the door is hung. Does it swing outward or open inward? Is the knob on the left or the right? These observations must be made to orient you to the proper position and method of attack. Finally, how many and what kind of locks are keeping this door closed? Let's take a look at some of the locks commonly used today. The mortise lock is designed and manufactured to fit into a cavity in the edge of the door. The rim lock or surface lock is made to fit on the inside surface of the door. The cylinder extends through the door and the keyhole is visible from the outside. The common key in the knob lock is used extensively in office buildings and private dwellings. This lock has a short latch with a throw of a ½ inch or less. The tubular lock can best be described as a cross between the mortise lock and the knob lock. These locks are easily recognized by their cylinders, which protrude a ½ inch or more from the door. A locking device that is not easily recognized from the outside is the sliding deadbolt. It can be mounted in such a position to project the bolt up or down or into either side of the door frame. A variation of this is the bar. This is basically a piece of wood or steel held in place by brackets, which extends across both sides of the door frame. Padlocks are portable or detachable locking devices having sliding and pivoting shackles that pass through a staple. The staple is usually attached to a door or gate. On many commercial occupancies, you may find 6 or more padlocks that need to be removed to enter and vent the building. Here are the tools used in this tape to perform basic forcible entry. Now, your main attack tools will be the Halligan and the axe. And by the way, this is the beveled side of the Halligan, and this is the concave side. Now, your other manual tools will include the 10-pound maul, the bolt cutters, the duckbill lock breaker, and as you'll see later in the tape, a 36-inch pipe wrench. Now, your power tools will include the rabbet tool, the forcible entry saw with aluminum oxide blade, and the MAP gas torch cutter. Here's your typical apartment door. Now, the cardinal rule is try the doorknob first. If forcible entry is required, start your size up immediately. Determine if the door opens outward or swings inward. If you see hinges on the outside, you know it opens outward. Now, on this door, we see no hinges, so we know it opens inward. Also, it's a metal door, so adjust the bevel side of the fork end of the Halligan accordingly. The general rule is, if the door is wood, place the beveled side of the fork against the door. And if the door is metal, place the beveled side of the fork against the jamb. All right, let's force the door.
Your first step is to try the doorknob. The fork end is placed between the locks, and under the direction of the ironsman, the can man strikes the Halligan with short, chopping blows with the emphasis on accuracy and coordination. While doing this, gradually bring the tool to a point perpendicular to the door. This will prevent the fork from being driven into the jamb. The man wielding the axe must be aware that the ironsman will be maneuvering the Halligan, so his blows must be carefully placed, and he must listen for instruction from the man holding the tool.
On inward opening doors, the use of the rabbet tool has made life considerably easier. By using hydraulic pressure, tremendous amounts of force can be exerted against the door.
The door might be flush with the jamb. Sometimes simply leaning on the door will give you enough room to insert the jaws. If not, use a Halligan to make the initial purchase. Of course, the jaws must be in a closed position. Set the lever to pressure and operate the pump. Then it's a matter of inserting the jaws between the door and the jamb
midway between the knob and lock or right on the lock. Hold the jaws with a gloved hand, and the door should be open in 3 to 4 pumps of the handle. Don't let the door pop open. Hold the door closed, not locked, until entry is ready to be made. Keep the reservoir level by pumping the handle on the ground. If you must take it off the ground, keep the hose pointing down. A word of caution when using the rabbit tool on doors that have locks protected by shields. Do not stand in front of the lock while the operation is in progress. The bolts can become dangerous projectiles. Now let's look at how to force an outward swinging door. If it's a flush fitting door and you use the adze end, place it above or below the lock and drive it into the space between the door and the jamb. The tool is then pulled toward the jamb to force the door. When using the fork end, place the concave side of the fork against the door. When the tool has spread the door as far as possible, force the adze end away from the door, slipping the bolt from its keeper as the door is pulled outward. Caution: beware of forcing outward opening doors in smoke or darkness. They may lead to an elevator shaft. Up to now, we've discussed inward and outward opening doors that have been secured by basic mortise and rim locks. As the locks become more sophisticated and the doors and jambs get more substantial, greater difficulty is encountered forcing these doors. The most difficult lock you're likely to encounter is the multi-lock. Since the through-the-lock method usually jams this lock, conventional forcible entry is called for. Now the multi-lock has a keyhole in the center of the door, or off-center, that has 4 rods running from it, up, across, down, and over. Your first step is to check to see if the lock's engaged. You do that with a piece of cardboard or a shove tool. Okay, there's the bar. We know the lock is engaged. Now your next step is to pick a spot on the door to make a cut with your forcible entry saw so that you can get your arm in and release the locks. On this door we chose here, where we won't cut the bars, and it's within reach of all 3 locks. Make your cut through the door, then reach in, open the door. If after you make your cut, you find there's a key lock on the inside of the multi-lock, then make another cut, this time cutting a square around the lock, severing all the bars, work the bars out, and then open the door. Now, if you find yourself in a situation where you don't have a power saw, then use your 10-pound maul or your rabbit tool. Start by attacking the top bars first, then the side bar, then the bottom bar. And use a golf swing with the maul on the bottom bar. You'll get the most power. Oh, and by the way, check your wall first. Breaching the wall might be the easiest way of all. The police brace lock and Fox double bar lock are 2 locks you may encounter in residential and commercial buildings. Although they can be forced conventionally, the through-the-lock method is preferred. Knowing an alternate means of conventional forcible entry is important, especially if your initial attempt is not successful. A good alternative is forcing the door on the hinge side. Take the maul or the back of the axe and strike the solid part of the door adjacent to where the upper hinge is located. After the upper hinge is freed, use the same method on the lower hinge. But be aware, when you take a door from the hinge side, you lose the integrity of the door once it is open. If you have a heavy body of fire behind the door, it will soon be in the hall. Another way to attack the hinge side of the door is to use the axe and the halligan. Start by placing the adze end between the door and the jamb and pulling down. This will spread the door to give you the room to work and may even expose some hinge so you know where to start. You then drive the hook end of the tool deep into the jamb and then pull down in an effort to rip the hinge from the door and the frame. If the door tears or only some of the screws pull out, then reverse the tool and with the axe and Halligan, attack the hinge. Work together in your efforts and take a moment to see what you are dealing with. Get a steady pace, again starting with the top and working your way down. If the man using the axe gets tired, then switch positions. Accidents happen much more frequently when members are tired or muscles are worked to a point of fatigue. If what you are doing does not appear to be working, change it. Be flexible in your approach. Find a weak point and attack the door there.
Pull back.
One of the greatest challenges of forcible entry is the roll-down gate. These gates are used extensively across the city in commercial occupancies. Each gate is secured by at least 2 locks, and any time these occupancies are involved in a fire during non-business hours, these gates will have to be opened. Let's take a moment now and get a close-up look at some of the padlocks commonly in use today. There are 3 basic padlocks that you will encounter. The first is the regular padlock, which has a shackle of less than 1/4 inch and is not hardened. They usually can be cut with a bolt cutter and are rarely used on roll-down gates. Next are heavy-duty padlocks, which have a shackle of 1/4 inch or more and are hardened. Some have heel and toe locking. This prevents you from opening the lock by cutting only one side. With these locks, both sides of the shackle must be cut. The next lock you're likely to encounter is the American Series 2000 or the hockey puck lock. This lock can be very intimidating if you're unfamiliar with it. The primary tool will be either the partner saw equipped with the aluminum oxide blades or the torch. Remember, when using the forcible entry saw, start at a low RPM, then rev up. Hold padlock steady with vice grips. Cut both toe and heel of lock. When cutting the American Series 2000 lock, you will notice no shackle on the lock and also no staple to attack. Cut through the lock 2/3 up from the keyway, cutting it in 2 pieces. When using a torch on the Series 2000 padlock, go 2/3 up the keyway and hold steady in that position until you burn through the pin. Then strike with the back of an axe or maul, or use a halligan to pop it off. Okay, the locks are off, but the gate is still closed. Your next move is to pull any pins or retract any sliding bolts. Many times, unnecessary delays are encountered because a member intent on cutting locks forgot to pull the pin. The locks are off, the pins and bolts are clear, but the gate still does not open. This is because gates come in 3 basic varieties: manual, mechanical, and electrically operated lifting systems. If the door is manually operated, it will slide right up. You'll know these doors by the lift handles on the bottom and the absence of any extra housing at drum level. The mechanically operated door uses a chain hoist assembly. The gear and chain mechanism are located in a housing at the top of the door alongside of the drum. The chain hangs down next to the door and is held in place by an angle iron with locks that must be removed. Once removed, open the panel, remove the chain, and raise the gate. Last, we have the electrically operated door. Usually a large housing readily identifies this type of door. All electrically operated doors are equipped with an auxiliary chain hoist. Your first step is to remove the housing or housing faceplate that covers the machinery and then engage the chain hoist mechanism. Then raise the door as if it were mechanically operated. An alternate means is to cut the bicycle chain that runs around the sprocket wheel with the bolt cutters. Now you have a manually operated door and can lift it by hand. In a critical situation where time is of the essence, use your forcible entry saw to cut a triangle in the curtain with the apex at the top. Remember to keep the saw perpendicular to the angle of the cut to prevent binding. After the cut is completed, simply remove the slats, sliding them out from both sides. But be aware when removing slats. Some doors are spring-loaded and may retract suddenly. There may be times when you will be faced with the task of removing padlocks when no power tools are available. Using the duckbill along with a maul or an axe can be your best approach. While one member inserts the duckbill in the lock, the other strikes it so that the lateral force is exerted against the shackle from the inside out. Another good point to keep in mind is to always remember to look beyond the lock. Many times people will put a $50 lock on a $2 chain or hasp. By simply cutting the staple of the hasp with bolt cutters or tearing the hasp out with a Halligan, you can achieve your goal without ever touching the lock. The same is true for fences or doors secured with a chain and a case-hardened lock. Go after the chain with the bolt cutters, and again, you reach your objective by the easiest means. In any forcible entry situation, always use your size up to find the weak link in the system. This will save you both time and effort in your operation. While traveling around the city to research this project, we came across some interesting and innovative ways of forcing locks and doors. Some of this information can save you valuable time and effort, so we'd like to share it with you. And as with all the procedures in this tape, always use full protective gear in any operation, and use extra care when dealing with glass doors or windows. From Harlem, ladder companies have had a lot of success taking inward opening doors by using the adze end of the Halligan to make their initial attack. From Midtown comes a good tip on forcing glass doors. Many times dirt can fill the receiver on the floor, preventing the deadbolt on the lock from fully dropping. By inserting the adze end of the Halligan under the door, lifting and then pushing, the door may open without having to break anything. This can also work in doors that have a short throw bolt, even if the receiver is clean. An idea that seems to be popular in both the Bronx and Brooklyn is using the pipe wrench on the American 2000 or hockey puck lock. All you need is a 3-foot pipe wrench and a little leverage. In Queens and Staten Island, where surface-mounted locks are popular, the through-the-lock method can mean the point of a Halligan and an axe. Place the point of the tool directly on the cylinder and drive the lock off. This can be very effective on surface locks protected with shields. Lastly, we have the shove tool. You may have noticed we used it earlier in the tape to check the bottom of the multi-lock door. It's a great tool, it's simple to make, and it's easy to carry. Some members have made them from aluminum flashing, but 18-gauge steel is ideal. It can be useful for slipping the lock on outward opening doors that have a simple spring latch. They're also good when used in offices, private dwellings, or in fire towers where there's no re-entry without a key. The procedures shown in this video can only be mastered with practice and experience. You can practice some of these techniques only at fires, but experience is all around you in the firehouse. Tap into that knowledge so that when it's your turn at the door, you all know what to do. The first step in conducting an effective search is to have the proper equipment. This includes full firefighting gear, a flashlight, a mask with a pass alarm, and a radio if assigned to your position. Size up the building before entering. What type of occupancy is it? What floor is the fire on? What time of day is it? Next, chalk the entrance to the fire building as you enter. As you proceed to the reported fire floor, make sure to check conditions on any floors below. The apartment of the caller is not always the location of the fire. Before you enter, feel the door. Is fire on the other side? When the search is to begin in the immediate fire area, it is best to initiate it at the fire itself after first trying to confine the fire by closing doors or by effecting a quick knockdown with a portable extinguisher. The search should begin here and work outward. When the area to be searched is not the immediate fire apartment, such as the floor above the fire or adjacent areas, the search operation should begin at the point of entry and work towards a secondary means of egress. Don't let the door close and lock behind you. You may need it to make a quick exit if conditions deteriorate. Keep it open with a chock or place the head of an axe under the door. Usually in a search conducted by a forcible entry team, two members, the officer and can man, will go one way and the forcible entry man will go the other. Immediately upon entering, check the area behind the entrance door. Victims will usually try to reach a means of egress, and they often can be found in the vicinity of the entrance door. Have a plan. Don't wander aimlessly. The searcher is a potential victim in any search. Many locked doors in what may appear to be a single-family apartment often indicate a single-room occupancy. Every door in the apartment, whether locked from the inside or outside, will have to be opened for a search. As you enter a room, stop and listen. Use your senses to help you. You may hear crying, coughing, moaning, or the crackling of the fire. You may also feel heat coming from one direction. Stay low when you enter to prevent being caught in a backdraft or flashover. The temperature will also be lower at floor level. If you become entangled in an obstacle, stop and use the quick release escape. Do not remove your facepiece. Extend both shoulder straps fully. Grasp the left shoulder strap with your left hand. Release the waist buckle. Turn 180 degrees to your left to face the mask while still holding the left shoulder strap. Free the mask. Don the mask and continue with your search. Work toward a secondary means of egress, such as a window or a fire escape. Ventilate as you search, as long as doing so won't cause the fire to extend. This will help to lessen the heat and smoke conditions, improve visibility, and increase the chances of survival for anyone trapped inside. As you move through an apartment, get your bearings. What room are you in? Where would any victims be? The arrangement of furniture in a room sometimes creates spaces easily missed by searches. When examining these spaces, avoid moving furniture as this may cover a victim, seal a door, or block your egress. The outside vent man will attempt to enter the fire apartment opposite the forcible entry team, usually from a portable ladder or fire escape. Take out the glass and remove any draperies, but be careful not to cover any victim lying inside the window. Notify your officer that you are entering the window to search alone.
Ladder 32 OV to ladder 32.
Ladder 32, go ahead.
I'm entering the fire apartment from the rear fire escape.
Ladder 32, 10-4.
Enter the window facing out in case the fire vents suddenly and you must exit quickly. As you are advancing into the area by following the walls, at intervals move out from the wall and sweep the middle of the room with a tool or arm, and then move back to the wall and continue on. Sweep over beds and couches with your arms. Check between the bed and the wall at the mattress level. A small child can become lodged there and may be overlooked. To check under a bed, sweep gently back and forth with your leg. Be aware of the raised level of the mattress when finding cribs, bunk beds, and loft beds. You don't always have to break windows. Newer type thermopane windows are easy to open and take less time than breaking them. Open them 2/3 from the top and 1/3 from the bottom. Remove any screens, as they can trap as much as 50% of the smoke in the room. If you decide to take the glass, take it all. When you find a victim, transmit signal 1045 to the officer in command. What floor are you on? Are you in the front or the rear? Do you need assistance? Make your way back to the door or window that you came in. It is easier to remove an unconscious victim who is seriously endangered by the fire by dragging him along the floor. This keeps him below the heat and smoke and frequently is more expedient for the rescuer. If the victim is overweight or there are multiple victims, ask for help. One rescuer will grab the victim under the arms and the second will take the feet and move toward the door. Don't stop searching. There may be more than one victim. If you get lost, stop and call for help.
Ladder 320V to Battalion 27. Mayday, Mayday.
Battalion 27 to ladder 320V. Go ahead with your mayday.
Ladder 320V. Mayday. Member lost. I'm on the second floor front. I can't find my way out and I'm running out of air.
Battalion 27, 10-4.
Your pass should already be in the arm position. Turn it to on. Any member who hears a pass alarm in full alarm for 10 seconds is to notify the officer in command and investigate. Notify the officer in command again when the member is located.
Ladder 32 Irons to Battalion 27.
Battalion 27, go ahead.
I have the lost member and we're exiting the apartment.
Battalion 27, 10-4.
Face piece sharing can lead to increased exposure to airborne contaminants. This can cause the loss of both the victim and the rescuer. Victims should be removed from the contaminated area as soon as possible, where proper first aid can be administered. The priority order of removal for victims or members is 1. Interior stairs, 2. Horizontal exits, 3. Fire escape, 4. Ladders, and 5. The life-saving rope. Some important points to remember. Have full firefighting gear, size up the building, have a plan. Stay low, vent as you go, and don't stop searching after finding one victim. Know your response district. Searches are often performed under the most arduous and punishing conditions. Knowledge of building layouts and occupancies can be a firefighter's greatest asset in conducting a search. This knowledge can be gained during building inspection and when operating at non-fire emergencies.